My wife lied, cheated, and stole. I cut off her money, exposed her affairs, and took the house. The low hum of conversation filled the dimly lit bar as Jax Calloway nursed his whiskey. Seattle rain drummed against the windows, creating a rhythm that matched his heartbeat. He checked his watch, 9:30 p.m. Camille had texted that she was working a double shift at the hospital again. Jax rolled the amber liquid in his glass, ice cubes clinking. His calloused fingers, evidence of years building custom motorcycles, wrapped around the tumbler. The bar, a small establishment a few blocks from his shop, had become his regular spot when Camille's hospital shifts ran late. Another bartender nodded at his nearly empty glass. "Sure," Jax said, pushing the glass forward, his face revealing nothing of the growing suspicion that had been gnawing at him for months. The woman who slid onto the stool next to him smelled of antiseptic and faint perfume, a hospital scent. Jax glanced sideways, recognizing her from the few times he had visited Camille at work. Dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, tired eyes, scrubs barely visible under her jacket. "You're Camille's husband, right?" she said, her voice continuing without waiting for his response. "Jax, isn't it? I'm Issa. We've met at the hospital, Christmas party." Jax turned slightly. "I remember," he said, though he didn't. He had learned to fake it. People appreciated being remembered. "God, I needed this drink," Issa said, taking a long sip. "Double shifts are killing me." Jax's attention sharpened. "You work with Camille?" "Yeah, same department." "She's not here with you. Working late?" Issa snorted, the sound surprising in its derision. "Right. Working something." Her tone made Jax's skin prickle. He kept his expression neutral, his voice casual. "So, something funny about that?" "Sorry, not my business," Issa said, sipping her drink, but her eyes held something. Pity, maybe. Jax signaled the bartender. Another for the lady. He turned his full attention to Issa, using the charm that had built him a loyal customer base. "Long day?" "The longest." 3 drinks in, Issa was looser, leaning slightly toward him. "You know how it is at hospitals. Drama everywhere." "I can imagine," Jax said, though he couldn't. He needed her talking. "Your wife's at the center of it all, of course," Issa said, her lips quirking in what wasn't quite a smile. "Camille loves attention." "She's good at her job," Jax said, the practiced response of a supportive husband. Issa's eyebrows shot up. "Oh, she's good at a lot of things." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Look, I don't want to overstep, but you guys have an open thing going on, right? I mean, she talks about it like you do." The whiskey turned bitter in Jax's mouth. "An open thing?" "Yeah, you know, your arrangement," Issa said, waving her hand vaguely. "She's always dropping hints about how you two have this modern marriage. No limitations, no questions asked. Pretty progressive of you guys." Jax's heart pounded against his ribs, but years of negotiating with difficult clients had taught him to maintain composure. He took a slow sip. Camille's always been ahead of the curve. Encouraged by his apparent acceptance, Issa continued. "Well, she sure takes advantage of it, especially with Dr. Langston." She rolled her eyes. "The on-call room isn't as private as they think." Jax kept his voice steady. "Langston, the new cardio guy?" "Not that new anymore. Been there almost a year." Issa's eyes narrowed. "Wait, you didn't know about him, right? I mean, she said you were cool with it all." "Sure," Jax lied easily. "We don't discuss details." Relief washed over Issa's face. "Thank God. I thought I was stepping in something there." She drained her glass. "Camille's got quite the wild side, though. Between us, Langston's kind of an ass. Married, too. But I guess that's part of the thrill, right?" Every word was a knife, but Jax absorbed the pain without flinching. "And that trainer guy, total eye candy, but not much going on upstairs, if you know what I mean." Jax blinked. "Trainer?" "Yeah, from that fancy gym downtown, Callum something. Started as a personal trainer. Ended up pretty personal, if you get my drift." Issa giggled at her own joke. "God, listen to me gossiping, but it's fine since you already know." "Of course," Jax said, signaling for another round. "Tell me more about Camille at work. Seems I only hear half the stories." An hour later, Issa was 3 more drinks in, and Jax had learned more than enough. Dr. Vincent Langston, married with 3 kids, arrogant, powerful, and involved in 10 hospital staff affairs over the past 5 years. Callum Merritt, a young, ambitious personal trainer building his client list, completely unaware that Camille was married despite her wearing her ring during sessions. And his wife, the woman he had built a life with for 7 years, was a stranger. "I should get going," Issa said, checking her phone. "Early shift tomorrow." "Let me call you a cab," Jax offered, pulling out his wallet and paying both their tabs. "Thanks for the company." "Anytime," she said, stumbling slightly as she stood. "Tell Camille we need to coordinate our schedules better." She keeps switching with Angela to get the same shifts as Vince. Jax helped her to the cab, the perfect gentleman. I'll let her know. Watching the taillights disappear into the rainy night, Jax felt something shift inside him. The suspicion that had been simmering for months crystallized into certainty, but there was no explosion of rage, no immediate desire to confront. Instead, a cold clarity washed over him. He walked 3 blocks to his motorcycle, a restored vintage Triumph he had rebuilt himself, and rode home through the rain. The wet streets reflected neon signs that blurred as he passed. His mind, however, was razor sharp. Camille had betrayed him. Now he needed proof. The house was dark when Jax arrived home. The spacious craftsman in Seattle's Queen Anne neighborhood represented years of hard work. His custom motorcycle business had taken off 5 years ago, allowing them to buy in one of the city's most desirable areas. Camille had insisted on this neighborhood, close to her mother's estate. Jax hung his wet jacket in the mudroom and moved silently through the house. Each room held memories that now felt tainted. The kitchen where they had cooked together, the living room where they had entertained friends, the bedroom where he believed they shared something real. He checked his phone. No messages from Camille. Her shift supposedly ended at midnight. It was now 11:15 p.m. He had time. Starting methodically, Jax searched their bedroom. Camille's organization made it easy to detect if anything was disturbed. Her dresser drawers revealed nothing unusual. Neatly folded clothes, lingerie he recognized, jewelry she wore regularly. The nightstand contained reading glasses, hand cream, and a novel with a bookmark halfway through. Moving to the walk-in closet, Jax examined her collection of handbags. The expensive purses, many gifts from him, were arranged by color and style. He checked each one carefully, finding nothing until he reached a small clutch in the back corner. The black leather bag looked unremarkable, but it was the only one with a zipper pocket inside. Jax felt inside, and his fingers touched something hard and rectangular, a phone. Not her iPhone, which he paid for each month, but a sleek black Android. He sat on the edge of the bed, turning the device over in his hands. It was password protected. He tried Camille's birthday. Nothing. Her mother's birthday. Nothing. Frustration threatened to break his composure, but he pushed it down. What would she use? Something easy to remember, but not obvious. He tried the date they met. Nothing. The date they married? Nothing. Then, on a hunch, he tried the street number of the hospital, 1842. The phone unlocked. What he found confirmed everything Issa had said, and worse. Text messages dating back 8 months with Dr. Vincent Langston, explicit conversations, arrangements for meetings during shifts, hotel reservations, photos that burned themselves into Jax's memory. And Callum Merritt, the conversations more recent, only 4 months old, but equally damning, scheduling private sessions that overlapped with times Camille had told him she was having dinner with friends or working late. Jax's hands didn't shake. His breathing remained steady. The pain was there, deep and sharp, but he channeled it into focus. He connected the phone to his laptop and copied everything: messages, photos, contacts, call logs. Then he carefully returned the phone to its hiding place, ensuring nothing looked disturbed. In his home office, Jax reviewed the evidence more thoroughly. Calendar entries revealed the pattern. Camille's late shifts aligned perfectly with hotel reservations and messages to both men. 8 months of lies, 8 months of coming home to him, sleeping beside him while living a separate life. The front door opened just as the clock hit 12:30 a.m. Jax closed his laptop, took a deep breath, and prepared for the performance of his life. "Jax, you still up?" Camille's voice called from the entryway. He moved to the kitchen, leaning against the counter as she entered. She looked tired, her blonde hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, scrubs exchanged for jeans and a sweater. She must have changed at the hospital. "Thought I'd wait up," he said, keeping his voice casual. "Rough shift?" "Exhausting," she said, dropping her bag on the counter, avoiding his eyes in a way he now recognized as guilt. 2 cardiac events and a staffing shortage. Lies. According to the texts, she had met Langston at a hotel downtown at 9 p.m., leaving just enough time to change and arrive home from work. "You should get some rest," Jax said, approaching her and planting a kiss on her forehead. Every cell in his body rebelled against touching her, but his face revealed nothing. "I'll be up in a bit." Relief flickered across her features, relief that he suspected nothing, that her deception continued unchallenged. "You're the best," she said, touching his face with a tenderness that now felt like another lie. "Don't stay up too late." As she headed upstairs, Jax remained in the kitchen, staring at nothing. The woman he married wasn't just cheating, she was living an entirely different life. One where she mocked their marriage, gave herself to other men without remorse, and maintained a carefully constructed facade. He wouldn't confront her. Not yet. Not until he had a plan that would dismantle her world as thoroughly as she had destroyed his. For that, he needed help. The next morning, Jax maintained the illusion of normalcy. He kissed her goodbye as she left for an early shift, watched her drive away in the luxury SUV he had bought her last year, and waited 30 minutes to ensure she wouldn't return for something forgotten. Then he made a call. "This is unexpected," his sister's voice held a note of surprise. Naomi Calloway rarely received morning calls from her brother. "Everything okay? Need to talk in person. Your place. 1 hour." A brief pause. "I'll clear my schedule." Unlike Camille, Naomi lived modestly despite her success. Her condo in Belltown offered stunning views of Puget Sound, but its interior was Spartan, practical furniture, minimal decorations, nothing without purpose. It reflected her military background and current work as a security consultant. Naomi opened the door before he knocked. At 38, she was 2 years younger than Jax, but the siblings shared the same dark hair and intense focus. She wore simple black pants and a gray sweater, her hair cut in a practical bob that required minimal maintenance. "Coffee's ready," she said, leading him to the kitchen, studying his face. "You look like hell." "Thanks," Jax said, accepting the mug she offered. "Always good to see you too." "Cut the crap," Naomi said, leaning against the counter. "What's going on? Is it the business?" "It's Camille." Something in his tone made Naomi straighten. The siblings had a complicated relationship with Jax's wife. Naomi had never fully trusted Camille, sensing something beneath the perfect nurse facade, but she kept her concerns mostly to herself out of respect for her brother. "What happened?" Jax placed his laptop on the counter, opened it, and turned it toward Naomi. "She's been cheating. At least 8 months that I can prove." Naomi's expression hardened as she scrolled through the evidence. Her military intelligence training was evident in the way she processed the information, methodical, detached, analyzing patterns. "2 men, concurrent affairs," she said, looking up at Jax. "How did you find out?" "Her colleague got drunk and told me, thinking I already knew. Apparently, Camille's been telling people we have an open marriage." Naomi cursed under her breath. "Who else knows about this?" "Based on texts, at least a dozen hospital staff know about Langston. The trainer seems more discreet, but the gym staff probably suspect. So she's not just cheating, she's humiliating you publicly." Naomi closed the laptop, her expression shifting to the tactical focus that had made her valuable to military intelligence. "What do you want to do?" "I want her destroyed," Jax said, the words cold and precise. "Not just divorced, ruined." Any other sister might have counseled restraint or suggested marriage counseling. Naomi simply nodded. "I assume you haven't confronted her yet." "No, I'm playing along until I have a plan." "Smart," she said, moving to a small desk in the corner and pulling out a notepad. "We need to be strategic. Where do we hurt her most?" Jax considered the question. Her reputation, her job, her family's approval. He paused. "And money. She loves the lifestyle." "Those are our targets," Naomi said, beginning to write. "First step is more surveillance. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with." "What do you suggest? Cameras in the house?" "Something discreet but comprehensive," she said, tapping her pen against the paper. "I have equipment from work we can use. Nothing traceable back to me." "Her car, too," Jax added. "She uses it for meetings. Doable. We need access to her financial records as well. Joint accounts, credit cards, everything." "Already have most of that," Jax said, pulling out his phone and showing her his banking app. "I handle the finances. She only checks the credit card statements when she's planning a big purchase." Naomi's mouth curved in a small, dangerous smile. That's going to come back to bite her. For the next 2 hours, they developed a plan. Naomi's expertise in intelligence gathering and Jax's intimate knowledge of Camille's routines created a roadmap for collecting irrefutable evidence of her betrayal. "What about Eleanor?" Naomi asked, referring to Camille's mother. "She's always been your biggest critic. She'll defend Camille no matter what, probably already knows about the affairs and approves." Jax's relationship with his mother-in-law had been strained from the beginning. Eleanor Harding viewed him as beneath her daughter, a mere mechanic who happened to build expensive motorcycles. Then she's a target too, Naomi decided. Social humiliation will hit both of them hard. Jax nodded. Eleanor cares about appearances more than anything. If this becomes public, she'll never recover. Speaking of public, Naomi hesitated. You realize that once we start this, there's no going back. It will get ugly. I know, Jax said, meeting his sister's eyes. I don't want reconciliation. I don't want an explanation. I want justice. Naomi studied him for a moment, then nodded. Okay, Then we start today. They spent the afternoon gathering equipment. Naomi's connections provided state-of-the-art surveillance cameras small enough to hide in light fixtures, air vents, and other inconspicuous places. They purchased burner phones for communication and created new email accounts that couldn't be traced to either of them. Remember, Naomi advised as they finalized their plan, the key is patience. We collect evidence, identify weaknesses, and strike only when we can inflict maximum damage. How long? A month, maybe 2. We need enough to ensure there's no recovery for her. Jax felt a cold resolve settle over him. I can wait. As he prepared to leave, Naomi caught his arm. One more thing. You need to be perfect in your performance. Not just compliant, attentive. Make her believe everything is better than ever. You want me to romance my cheating wife? I want you to lull her into such a false sense of security that when you finally strike, it will destroy her completely. Naomi's expression was unyielding. Can you do that? Jax thought about the years he had invested in his marriage, the future he had planned with a woman who had been laughing at him behind his back. I can do whatever it takes. On the drive home, Jax's mind cycled through the plan they had created. Cameras would be installed tomorrow while Camille was at work. Financial accounts would be monitored and eventually separated. Evidence would be compiled and weaponized. The people Camille cared about most, her mother, her colleagues, her lovers, would become witnesses to her downfall. He felt oddly calm, focused in a way he hadn't been in years. The pain of betrayal had transformed into something else, a cold, precise purpose that clarified every thought and action. By the time he pulled into his driveway, Jax had become a different man. The trusting husband was gone. In his place stood someone with a single goal, the complete and utter destruction of Camille Harding. But he checked his watch. Camille would be home in an hour, expecting dinner and conversation about her day, a day likely spent in another man's bed. He would smile, listen, and play his part in the farce their marriage had become. But behind his eyes, a clock was ticking down to her reckoning. The next 2 weeks transformed Jax's home into a surveillance hub. With Naomi's help, they installed nearly invisible cameras in strategic locations. The living room, kitchen, master bedroom, and even Camille's car. Each night, after Camille fell asleep, Jax reviewed the footage, building his case with meticulous precision. But the most difficult task wasn't the technical setup, it was maintaining his facade of normalcy. Each morning, he kissed Camille goodbye. Each evening he asked about her day, knowing full well that her answers were fabrications. Tonight, as they prepared dinner together in their kitchen, Jax washed vegetables with practiced efficiency. Her nursing skills translated well to the kitchen, precise cuts, methodical movements. You seem distant lately, Camille said, glancing up at him. Everything okay with the shop? Jax stirred the sauce on the stove, careful to keep his expression neutral. Just busy. That custom Ducati for the tech CEO is taking longer than expected. You work too hard, she said, sliding the vegetables into the pan, her wedding ring catching the light, the same hand that had typed explicit messages to her lovers just hours ago, according to the surveillance footage. Maybe we should plan a weekend away, just the two of us. The audacity, Jax thought, but he smiled. That sounds nice. What were you thinking? There's a new resort on the Olympic Peninsula, supposedly very exclusive. She moved behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist in a gesture that once would have felt loving. We could use some alone time. I'll check my schedule, Jax said, turning to meet her eyes, searching for any hint of guilt or deception. He found none. Camille had perfected her performance. Do that, she said, kissing him quickly. I'm going to shower before dinner. As soon as she left the kitchen, Jax's smile dropped. His phone buzzed with a text from Naomi, new footage from her car. Call me when you can. Dinner became another exercise in restraint. They discussed trivial matters, a new restaurant downtown, an upcoming charity event at the hospital, plans for garden renovations in spring. Jax participated in the charade, all while mentally cataloging each lie. Vincent mentioned you stopped by the hospital the other day, Camille said casually as she sipped her wine. Said he saw you in the parking lot. It was a test. Jax had never been to the hospital that day. He must have confused me with someone else, Jax replied smoothly. I was at the shop all day Wednesday. Must have been, she said, looking relieved, which confirmed his suspicion. She was testing his awareness, probing for any sign he might be watching her. After dinner, Camille announced she was tired and headed to bed early. Jax claimed he needed to finish some designs for work. Once he heard the shower running upstairs, he called Naomi. What did you find? He asked without preamble. Your wife had a 20-minute conversation with Dr. Langston in her car today. Naomi replied. They're worried about someone, seeing them together. Apparently, a nurse supervisor almost caught them last week. Send me the footage. Already did, but there's more. I dug into Langston's background. Guy's got a history of affairs with staff. 2 complaints were filed but disappeared. My guess is the hospital buried them to avoid scandal. Can we get copies? Working on it. One of my contacts in HR owes me a favor. Naomi paused. How are you holding up with the act? Fine, Jack said, moving to his home office and closing the door. It's almost easy, like she's a stranger now. Good. Keep it that way. Oh, and I scheduled that accidental meeting with Issa Navarro for tomorrow, coffee shop near the hospital, 2 p.m. I'll be there. The next day, Jax positioned himself at a corner table in the coffee shop across from the hospital. Right on schedule, Issa Navarro walked in at 2:07 p.m., looking harried after her shift. He watched her order before standing up and appearing surprised to see her. Issa, what a coincidence. She turned, recognition dawning on her face. Jax, twice in 2 weeks. Must be fate. Seattle's just a small town, he said, gesturing to his table. Join me unless you're in a rush. Actually, sitting down sounds perfect, she said, following him to the table and setting down her coffee with a sigh. Hospital was chaos today. Rough shift. The worst. We lost a patient, then had an administrative nightmare with insurance forms. She rubbed her temples, plus all the usual drama. Jax nodded sympathetically. Hospital politics seem complicated. You have no idea, she said, taking a long sip of coffee. Actually, I've been meaning to apologize about the other night. I was pretty drunk and probably said things I shouldn't have. About what? Issa shifted uncomfortably. About Camille. Your arrangement. It wasn't my place. It's fine, Jack said, leaning forward and lowering his voice. Actually, I appreciated your honesty. Camille doesn't tell me much about work. Relief washed over Issa's face. Really? So you're not mad? Not at all. It's good to know what's happening in my wife's life. He offered a small smile. She can be private about certain things. That's one word for it, Issa said, relaxing now, convinced she hadn't crossed a line. God, the hospital is such a fishbowl. Everyone knows everyone's business, including Camille and Dr. Langston. Jax nodded. Oh yeah, that's hardly a secret anymore. Although they think they're being so discreet. She rolled her eyes. The on-call room has thin walls, if you know what I mean. And her other friend, the trainer, Callum, that's newer. Started a few months ago when she joined that premium gym downtown. Issa looked at him curiously. You really don't mind discussing this? Jax shrugged. Our arrangement works for us. The lie came easily. I just like knowing who's in her life. Well, Callum's definitely in her life, Issa said. She shows his texts sometimes during breaks. Guy's not exactly Shakespeare, but he's got a body that doesn't quit. She suddenly looked embarrassed. Sorry, that was inappropriate. Don't worry about it, Jax said, steering the conversation back. So, everyone in the hospital knows? Most of the nursing staff? Definitely. Administration tries to pretend they don't see it, but everyone knows Langston has a history. Camille's not his first workplace friend, just the longest-lasting one. For the next hour, Jax extracted every detail he could. Who knew about the affairs? Which colleagues had covered for Camille during her absences? What hotel Langston preferred for their meetings? Issa, now comfortable in her role as informant, held nothing back. You're easy to talk to, she said as they prepared to leave. Most husbands wouldn't be so understanding. I'm not most husbands, Jax said, paying for her coffee. Thanks for the conversation. It means a lot to have someone be straight with me. Anytime, she said, hesitating, then adding, you deserve that much at least. He caught the trace of something in her voice. Pity, perhaps, or attraction. Either way would serve his purpose. That evening, Jax compiled everything he had learned into a detailed report for Naomi. The next phase of their plan was about to begin, targeting Dr. Vincent Langston. The following week, Jax sat in his parked truck outside an upscale private school in Seattle's Magnolia neighborhood. Children in uniforms streamed from the building as parents waited in luxury vehicles. Among them was a silver Mercedes driven by an elegant woman in her early 40s, Patricia Langston, the doctor's wife. Beside him, Naomi checked her watch. She's right on schedule. Same pickup time every Monday and Wednesday. What did your contact at the hospital find? Jax kept his eyes on Mrs. Langston as she greeted her children, 2 girls and a boy, all under 12. 3 complaints in 5 years. All young nurses, all alleging inappropriate relationships. Hospitals settled quietly each time. Naomi handed him a folder. The last settlement was substantial enough to fund that Mercedes and their vacation home in Aspen. Jax flipped through the documents, noting the pattern. He has a type. Young, ambitious, new to the department. Camille doesn't fit that profile. She's established, experienced, which means she was likely the aggressor. Jax closed the folder. All the evidence points to her pursuing both relationships, makes her job easier. She can't claim victimhood. Naomi nodded toward the Mercedes, now pulling away from the curb. So, what's the play with the wife? Anonymous package. Everything we have on Langston and Camille. Hotel receipts, text messages, surveillance photos. Let her make the first move. And when she confronts him, we'll be ready to capture that too. Jax started the engine. I want their entire world on fire before they even realize there's smoke. 3 days later, they executed their plan. A package addressed to Patricia Langston arrived at her home while her husband was at work. Inside was a USB drive containing months of evidence, conversations between Camille and Vincent, photos taken outside hotels, a detailed timeline of their affair. The cameras Naomi had placed near the Langston home captured Patricia's reaction as she reviewed the evidence on her laptop in the kitchen. The transformation from confusion to shock to rage played out across her face in real time. She made 3 calls immediately, first to a lawyer, then to her mother, and finally to the hospital administration. She's not confronting him directly, Naomi observed as they watched the footage from her apartment. Smart woman. She's gathering her forces first. Jax agreed. Lawyer, family support, workplace leverage. By evening, the hospital had called an emergency board meeting. One of Naomi's contacts confirmed that doctor. Langston was summoned during his shift and didn't return to the floor afterward. Jax's phone buzzed with a text from Camille, in a working late. Emergency staff meeting. Don't wait up. Naomi read the message over his shoulder and smirked. Staff meeting, right? Let's see what's really happening. Jax switched to the footage from Camille's car, parked in the hospital garage. They didn't have to wait long. Camille practically ran to her vehicle, fumbling with her keys. Once inside, she immediately called someone. Vince, what the hell is happening? Her voice was panicked. They're saying you've been suspended pending investigation. They couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but Camille's reactions told the story. What? How did she get those? Who had... She stopped, listening. No one knows about us except... No, that's impossible. He doesn't suspect anything. Another pause. Of course I'm sure. I live with the man. I think I'd know if he was investigating me. She ran a hand through her hair, visibly distressed. What about the board? What are they saying? Jax watched his wife's face crumple as she received bad news. They can't do that. You've been there for 15 years. Her voice broke. What about your practice? Your patients? After she hung up, Camille sat in her car staring straight ahead. For a moment, Jax thought he detected genuine emotion, not for the pain she had caused or the lies she had told, but for the inconvenience to her affair. The hospital suspended him, Jax noted, his voice cold. Step 1 complete. And based on her reaction, he's blaming some anonymous source, not you, Naomi said, closing her laptop. Perfect. Now we wait for the fallout. The fallout came faster than expected. The next morning, the Seattle medical community was abuzz with gossip. Dr. Vincent Langston, a respected cardiologist, had been suspended for inappropriate relationships with staff. His wife had filed for divorce. The hospital was conducting a full investigation into his conduct over the past decade. Camille came home from her shift looking shell-shocked. Jax, she said, playing her part, what's wrong? Hospital politics, she muttered, avoiding his eyes. One of the doctors is in trouble. Anything serious? Just rumors. I don't want to talk about it. She headed upstairs, phone clutched tightly in her hand. Later, the surveillance cameras caught her whispering urgently in their bathroom. It's a nightmare, Vince. People are talking. Someone sent Patricia everything. Jax listened as she reassured her lover, promising to stand by him, all while planning to meet him later that week. Not once did she express remorse for her actions or concern for Langston's family. Over the next week, Langston's life continued to unravel. The hospital expanded their investigation, interviewing staff members about his behavior. Patricia's divorce filing became public record, citing infidelity with multiple women. His private practice partners were distancing themselves, concerned about liability. One down, Jax said as he reviewed the latest developments with Naomi. Time to move on to the fitness trainer. Already ahead of you, Naomi said, showing him photos of Callum Merritt, a muscular man in his early 30s with the polished, good looks of someone who made their living on physical appearance. He works at Elevation Fitness downtown. Personal training sessions run $200 an hour. Camille pays that with our joint credit card, charges it as wellness expenses. Want to know the interesting part? He has no idea she's married. Naomi showed him screenshots from Callum's Instagram, where he posted cryptic captions about his amazing new girlfriend, alongside photos of protein shakes and workout equipment. She takes off her ring for their sessions and dates. Does he think they're exclusive? Based on his social media, absolutely. He's already introduced her to his friends as his girlfriend. Jax considered this information. We'll save him for the finale. First, let's hit Camille where it really hurts. The Seattle morning was gray and drizzly as Jax sat in the sleek downtown office of Patricia Martin, one of the city's most feared divorce attorneys. The glass and steel building housed her practice on the 35th floor, offering panoramic views of Elliott Bay. Let me understand this correctly, Patricia said, reviewing the documents spread across her desk. You've known about your wife's affairs for a month but haven't confronted her. Correct, Jax said, remaining calm and professional. I wanted all my financial affairs in order first. Smart move, Patricia said, nodding approvingly. Most clients come to me after the emotional confrontation, when assets are already being hidden or depleted. I'm not most clients. Clearly, she said, examining the evidence he provided, bank statements, property deeds, business valuations. Your motorcycle business is doing exceptionally well. Custom builds for celebrities, a waiting list of 6 months. Very impressive. The business is mine, Jax said. Started before the marriage, built with my own capital, which helps protect it. But Washington is a community property state. She'll still try to claim a portion of its growth during the marriage. Patricia tapped her pen against the desk. However, with this evidence of infidelity and financial deception, we have significant leverage. I want to move quickly, Jax explained. Today, if possible. What exactly are you planning to do today? Transfer funds from our joint accounts to my business accounts. Cancel her credit cards. Remove her access to our investment portfolio. Jax's voice remained steady, all legally defensible given the circumstances. Patricia raised an eyebrow. That's aggressive. She'll notice immediately. That's the point. Understanding dawned on the attorney's face. I see. You want her to feel the consequences before she even knows you're aware of her actions. Exactly. I can file the paperwork today, which gives you legal cover for the financial moves, she said, beginning to type notes. But be prepared. Once she realizes what's happening, she'll likely contact her mother. Eleanor Harding has significant resources. I'm counting on it. By noon, Jax had executed every financial maneuver they had planned. He transferred $175,000 from their joint savings to his business account, canceled Camille's access to their shared credit cards, and instructed their investment manager to lock the portfolio pending divorce proceedings. Naomi met him for lunch at a small restaurant near the waterfront. How did it go with the attorney? Exactly as planned. Paperwork is filed. I'm legally protected for all the financial moves. Jax checked his watch. Camille should be discovering the first changes right about now. As if on cue, his phone rang. Camille's name lit up the screen. Naomi nodded encouragingly. Showtime, Jax answered, his voice casual. Hey, Jax, something's wrong with our accounts, Camille said, sounding confused, not yet panicked. I just tried to buy lunch and my card was declined. Really? That's strange. I checked the app and it says the card is canceled. Is there some kind of fraud alert? I'll look into it, he promised smoothly. Might be a system error. Can you fix it today? I need to pick up a few things after work. Sure thing. How's your day otherwise? The normalcy of his response seemed to reassure her. Busy. Still dealing with the Langston fallout. The whole hospital's talking about it. Sounds stressful. I'll see you tonight. Yeah, I should be home by 7. After hanging up, Naomi gave him an approving nod. Perfect tone. Believable but non-committal. She doesn't suspect anything yet. But she will by tonight when she tries to access the other accounts, Jax said, putting his phone away. What's your plan when she confronts you? I'll be working late at the shop. Let her stew overnight trying to figure out what's happening. True to his prediction, Camille called again at 5:30 p.m., this time with panic in her voice. Jax, all our accounts are locked. I can't access anything. The background noise suggested she was still at the hospital. I called the bank, and they said you made the changes. What's going on? I'm in the middle of something, Camille, Jax said, keeping his voice neutral, absorbed in work. Can we talk about this tonight? No, we need to talk now. I need access to our money. For what exactly? He allowed a hint of suspicion to creep into his tone. A pause. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. I'm just asking what's so urgent. I told you, I need to pick up some things, she said, lowering her voice. Are we having financial problems? Is that what this is about? Everything's fine with our finances. I made some security adjustments after a client had their accounts hacked. The lie would buy him time. I'll explain everything tonight. Fine, but I need at least one card working today. I'll see what I can do. He hung up without promising anything. At 7:15 p.m., Jax received another call from Camille, now clearly agitated. Where are you? I thought you'd be home by now. Working late on the Wilson project, deadline moved up. He glanced around his empty shop, where he had set up surveillance to record Camille's reactions at home. Probably another few hours. We need to talk about the accounts, Jax. Nothing is working and I had to borrow money from a colleague to get gas. We'll sort it out tomorrow. I've been in meetings all day. Tomorrow? I can't wait until... She stopped abruptly. Is this about something else? Are you punishing me for something? Jax kept his voice level. What would I be punishing you for, Camille? The silence stretched between them. Nothing. It feels deliberate. We'll talk tomorrow. I need to get back to work. After hanging up, Jax watched the home surveillance feed. Camille paced the kitchen, making frantic calls, first to her bank, then to her mother, and finally to Dr. Langston. The cameras captured her growing panic as she realized her financial lifeline had been cut. I don't know what's happening, she told Langston, voice quivering. All the accounts are frozen. He's never done anything like this before. She listened, then shook her head. No, he can't know about us. He's acting normal otherwise. A pause. I might need to borrow some money until I figure this out. From Langston's pained silence, audible even through the phone, it was clear he had financial troubles of his own. By midnight, Camille had worked herself into a state of anxiety, checking accounts repeatedly, finding them all still locked. When Jax finally returned home, she was waiting in the kitchen, eyes red from crying. What's going on? She demanded. Why did you cut off access to our money? Jax set down his keys calmly. I realized we needed better financial security after what happened with Langston at the hospital. I got worried about protecting our assets. What does Langston have to do with our bank accounts? Hospital scandal, potential lawsuits. Made me think about vulnerability. He shrugged. I'll add you back tomorrow after I finish setting up the new protocols. The explanation was plausible enough that Camille's suspicion wavered. You should have told me first. You're right, I should have. He offered an apologetic smile that didn't reach his eyes. It's been a crazy week. The ease with which she accepted his explanation confirmed what he already knew. Camille believed he was completely in the dark about her betrayal. Her relief was palpable, her guard lowering immediately. Just make sure I have access tomorrow. I have things I need to take care of. Of course, he said, kissing her forehead, the gesture empty of any affection. Everything will be back to normal soon. The irony of his promise hung in the air as she went upstairs, unaware that normal would never return and that her financial ruin was just the beginning. 2 weeks later, Jack stood in his shop office, examining the elegant cream-colored invitation in his hands. Perfect, he told the printer, who had rushed the order. Exactly what I wanted. The invitation announced a surprise anniversary celebration for Camille, to be held at Allure, one of Seattle's most exclusive restaurants. The date was set for Friday evening, still 5 months before their actual anniversary. The early date won't raise suspicion? Naomi asked as the printer left. It adds to the surprise element. Camille loves unexpected gestures. Jax placed a stack of invitations on his desk. We'll tell her I planned early to catch her off guard. In reality, the timing was strategic. Langston's divorce proceedings were underway but not yet finalized. Callum Merritt was still unaware of Camille's deception, and Eleanor Harding had just returned from a European trip, making her available to witness her daughter's downfall. Over the next few days, invitations were hand-delivered to key players. Eleanor Harding received hers at her Queen Anne mansion with a personal note from Jax about surprising Camille. Dr. Vincent Langston found his in his hospital mailbox. Callum Merritt got his at the gym where he trained clients. Colleagues from the hospital, friends from Camille's social circle, even a hospital administrator who had been investigating Langston, all received invitations suggesting a celebration of Jax and Camille's wonderful marriage. Naomi handled the RSVPs, confirming that every essential guest had accepted. Most importantly, none have mentioned the event to Camille. Believing it to be a genuine surprise, she told Jax 3 days before the event. Langston hesitated, but curiosity won out. He wants to see what you're planning. And Merritt, confused but intrigued, he thinks it might be some kind of progressive marriage thing, given what Camille's told him about your arrangement. Jax nodded. Eleanor accepted immediately. Probably sees it as a chance to criticize my taste in restaurants. The final piece came together the day before. Jax visited Eleanor Harding at her home, playing the role of devoted son-in-law. Eleanor received him in her formal living room, every inch the Seattle socialite in her designer outfit and perfectly coiffed hair. At 65, she remained formidable, with Camille's features hardened by decades of judgment and social climbing. "This is unexpected," she said, not bothering to stand when he entered. "I assumed I'd see you tomorrow at the dinner. I wanted to discuss a few details beforehand," Jax said, taking a seat across from her, declining the offered tea, "to make sure everything goes smoothly for Camille." "Very thoughtful," she said, her tone suggesting surprise that he was capable of such consideration. "Though I must say, celebrating your anniversary months early is rather unconventional." "Camille appreciates spontaneity," Jax said, leaning forward slightly. "Actually, I wanted to ask your help with a special presentation I've planned." "Oh?" Interest flickered across Eleanor's face. "What kind of presentation?" "A video tribute to Camille, her accomplishments, her relationships, her life." Jax kept his expression earnest. "I'd like you to say a few words about her during it." "I see," Eleanor said, seeming pleased by the request. "I suppose I could prepare something suitable." "Nothing prepared, just your genuine reaction to what you see." Jax stood. "I want everyone to experience the real Camille." Eleanor nodded, missing the double meaning in his words. "Well, I look forward to it. It's about time you did something truly special for my daughter. Believe me," Jax said as he left, "tomorrow will be unforgettable." The evening of the dinner arrived with perfect execution. Jax told Camille they had reservations at Allure to celebrate a major new client for his business. She dressed elegantly in a navy blue dress that had cost him nearly $2,000 the previous Christmas. "You look beautiful," he told her as they drove downtown, the compliment calculated rather than heartfelt. "Thanks," she said, seeming relaxed, having recovered from the financial scare. Jax had restored minimal access to one credit card, enough to prevent further suspicion while limiting her spending. "You're being very mysterious about this client. You'll understand soon enough." When they arrived at the restaurant, the maitre d' guided them to the private dining room at the back. Jax watched Camille's face as the door opened, revealing a room filled with familiar faces, her mother, hospital colleagues, friends. "Surprise!" the group called out in practiced unison. Confusion crossed Camille's face, followed by pleasure as she assumed this was simply a surprise party. Then she spotted Dr. Langston standing uncomfortably near the back, and her smile faltered. Before she could process this, her eyes found Callum Merritt near the bar, looking equally confused as he recognized her. "Jax, what is this?" she whispered, gripping his arm tightly. "Our anniversary celebration," he said loudly enough for others to hear. "I couldn't wait 5 more months to tell everyone how much I appreciate my wife." Eleanor approached, kissing Camille's cheek. "What a lovely surprise, dear." Jax planned everything. Camille's eyes darted between her lovers and her mother, panic rising. "I don't understand why everyone is here." "All the important people in your life," Jax explained, steering her toward the center of the room. "Everyone who should witness this moment." He nodded to the server, who activated a screen on the far wall. The lights dimmed slightly. "If I could have everyone's attention," Jax called out, his voice commanding the room. "I've prepared a special tribute to my wonderful wife, Camille." The screen flickered to life, showing a smiling photo of Camille in her nursing scrubs. Soft music played as images transitioned, Camille at hospital functions, at home with friends. "Camille and I have been married for 7 years, Jax narrated as the photos continued. "During that time, I thought I knew everything about her." The music shifted subtly, becoming discordant. "But recently I discovered Camille has been living another life entirely." The screen changed to show text messages between Camille and Dr. Langston, explicit conversations that left nothing to the imagination. Gasps echoed through the room as photos appeared, Camille entering hotel rooms, kissing Langston in her car, timestamps clearly visible. "For 8 months, my wife has been having an affair with Dr. Vincent Langston," Jax continued, his voice steady. "A man who, as many of you now know, has a history of inappropriate relationships at the hospital." Camille lunged for him, trying to stop the presentation. "Turn it off! This is insane!" Jax stepped away, letting her stumble forward slightly. But that wasn't enough for Camille. The screen shifted to show similar evidence of her relationship with Callum, including messages where she claimed to be single and described Jax as merely her roommate. Callum's face drained of color as he watched what he thought was an exclusive relationship exposed as yet another affair. For those who don't know him, this is Callum Merritt, Camille's personal trainer and second simultaneous affair, Jax announced. Callum, I believe you thought you were dating a single woman, correct? All eyes turned to the stunned trainer, who looked from the screen to Camille in disbelief. You're married? Callum's voice cracked. All this time? It's not what it looks like, Camille pleaded, turning to Jax. This is a misunderstanding, is it? Jax clicked to the next slide, footage from their home showing Camille on the phone, describing her idiot husband who had no idea about her affairs. In the video, she laughed about how she created a story about an open marriage to explain her behavior to colleagues. The room had gone completely silent. Eleanor Harding stood frozen, her social standing crumbling before her eyes as her daughter was exposed. Camille has been lying to everyone in this room, Jax continued. To me about our marriage, to Dr. Langston about our supposed arrangement, to Callum about being single, to her colleagues about her professional ethics, and to her mother about being the perfect daughter. He turned to face Eleanor directly. You always thought I wasn't good enough for Camille. How do you feel about her now? Eleanor's face had turned to stone, her eyes darting around the room, calculating the social damage. Jax, please, Camille grabbed his arm, tears streaking her makeup. Let's talk about this privately. Like you talked privately to Vincent about how boring I am in bed. Jax pulled his arm free. Or how you discussed with Callum all the ways you're trapped in your marriage. Patricia Langston, who had arrived midway through the presentation at Jax's invitation, stepped forward. I believe we've all seen enough, Dr. Langston. Our attorneys will be very interested in this evidence. The hospital administrator cleared his throat uncomfortably. Given this new information, we'll need to revisit the investigation parameters. One by one, guests began to leave, murmuring apologies and avoiding eye contact with Camille, who stood trembling in the center of the room. Callum was the last to approach her. I trusted you. I introduced you to my family. I can explain, she whispered, reaching for him. He backed away. Don't contact me again. Turning to Jax, he added, Man, I had no idea she was married, I swear. I know, Jax said simply. That's why you were invited. You deserve the truth, too. After everyone had gone, only Jax, Camille, and Eleanor remained in the private dining room. Camille had collapsed into a chair, sobbing. How could you do this to me, she demanded between tears. To humiliate me publicly? The same way you humiliated me for months, Jax said, his voice calm. The difference is, you chose to betray our marriage. I'm just making sure everyone knows who you really are. Eleanor finally spoke, her voice cold. This display was unconscionable, regardless of Camille's indiscretions. Indiscretions? Jax laughed without humor. Is that what you call systematic betrayal and lying? We could have handled this privately, as civilized people. Eleanor put a protective arm around her daughter. Instead, you've destroyed her reputation. Her actions destroyed her reputation. I just made sure people saw the truth. Jax gathered his coat. Divorce papers will be delivered tomorrow. Don't bother coming home, Camille. The locks have been changed. You can't do this, Camille said, standing shakily. You're destroying everything. No, Jax said calmly. You destroyed everything. I'm just making sure everyone knows it. He turned and walked toward the door, pausing to look back at Camille, clutching her mother's arm, mascara streaking down her face. Enjoy explaining this to everyone, he said. I'm sure your mother can help spin it somehow. Eleanor's expression was a mixture of fury and calculation as she held her sobbing daughter. Outside, in the cool night air, Jax took his first full breath in months. The public humiliation was complete. Camille's carefully constructed image had shattered in front of everyone who mattered to her. As he walked to his motorcycle, a cold satisfaction settled in his chest. The setup was complete. Everything was in place for the final phase of his plan. 3 days after the disastrous dinner, Jax sat in his office at the motorcycle shop, reviewing design plans for a custom build. The aftermath of Camille's public exposure had been exactly as he predicted. Hospital gossip had spread like wildfire. Several clients had texted him with awkward condolences. He had even received a message from Dr. Langston's wife thanking him for the evidence that would strengthen her divorce case. His phone buzzed with a text from Naomi, incoming. Camille just parked outside with dearest mom. Jack set his phone down and continued working. Let them wait. The bell above the shop door jingled, followed by the click of expensive shoes on concrete. Mr. Calloway is busy, Jax heard his shop manager say. If you'd like to make an appointment. This is a family matter. Eleanor Harding's imperious voice cut through the workshop noise. Tell him his wife is here. Jax saved his work before stepping out into the main shop area. Camille stood next to her mother, looking smaller somehow, her usual confidence deflated. Both women were impeccably dressed, Eleanor in a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Camille in a cream-colored dress that Jax recognized from their second anniversary. "It's fine, Mike," Jax told his manager. "I'll handle this." He led them to his office without offering refreshments or pleasantries. The small space felt crowded with tension as Eleanor positioned herself between Jax and her daughter. "This childish revenge has gone far enough," Eleanor began, her voice tight with controlled anger. "You've made your point." Jax leaned back in his chair. "I wasn't aware I was trying to make a point." "Don't be obtuse," Eleanor said, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her designer handbag. "You publicly humiliated my daughter to satisfy your ego." "I publicly revealed the truth," Jax corrected. "There's a difference." Camille stepped forward, her eyes red-rimmed but dry. "I know what I did was wrong, Jax. I got lost somewhere along the way." "Lost?" Jax raised an eyebrow. "In two men's beds simultaneously? That's crude and unnecessary," Eleanor snapped. "But accurate," Jax said, keeping his focus on Camille. "You weren't lost. You made calculated decisions every day for 8 months." "I made mistakes," Camille said, her voice quavering with what might have been convincing emotion if he hadn't seen the same performance directed at patient families. "Terrible mistakes. But we can work through this. People recover from affairs all the time." "You didn't have an affair, Camille. You had 2 concurrent relationships while mocking our marriage to your colleagues." Jax's voice remained steady. "You come into my workplace with your mother as backup and expect what exactly? Forgiveness? I expect rational discussion rather than vindictive theatrics," Eleanor interjected. "Whatever Camille's indiscretions, your response has been disproportionate and, frankly, beneath what I would expect from even you." Jax smiled coldly. "Always nice to hear your assessment of my character, Eleanor." "Mom, please," Camille said, touching her mother's arm before turning back to Jax. "I'm not making excuses. What I did was wrong, but you and I built a life together. 7 years, Jax. That has to mean something." "It meant everything to me," Jax said, his expression hardening, "until I discovered it was a lie." "Not everything was a lie," Camille said, taking a tentative step closer. "We had good times. We can get back to that. I'll do whatever it takes. Therapy, complete transparency, anything." Eleanor cleared her throat. "While I believe in the sanctity of marriage, perhaps a financial adjustment might help facilitate healing." Jax turned his attention to his mother-in-law. "Are you offering to buy my forgiveness?" "I'm suggesting that discretion has value," Eleanor said, opening her handbag and removing a folded document. "Camille's indiscretions were private matters that you chose to make public. That decision has implications for her career, her reputation, and by extension, our family name." "You think I care about your family name? I think you care about financial security," Eleanor said, sliding the document across his desk. "This is a draft agreement, in exchange for your discretion moving forward, including removal of any videos or evidence you've gathered, and a mutual non-disparagement clause. The Harding family is prepared to offer compensation." Jax glanced at the paper without touching it. The figure at the bottom, $2 million, might have been impressive if he hadn't already built a successful business worth 3 times that amount. "Let me understand this correctly," Jax said, looking between the 2 women. "Camille betrays our marriage for nearly a year, lies continuously to my face, mocks me to her lovers and colleagues, then I expose her behavior, and you want to pay me to pretend it never happened." "We want to move forward civilly," Camille said, "for both our sakes. She's offering you a clean break with substantial compensation," Eleanor added. "Many men would consider that a victory." A laugh escaped Jax's throat, genuine but devoid of humor. "You think this is about money?" "Everything is about money to some degree," Eleanor replied coolly, "and $2 million is significant by any measure." Jax stood, towering over both women. "You still don't get it, do you? This was never about money. This is about justice. Consequences." "So it's punishment you're after," Eleanor said, her lips thinning. "How disappointingly small-minded. Call it what you want." Jax picked up the agreement and tore it in half, then quarters. "I'm not interested in your money or your version of moving forward." "Jax, please," Camille said, her voice cracking as she reached for his hand. "I still love you. We can fix this." He pulled away from her touch. "There's nothing to fix. Our marriage is over." "You don't mean that," she said, tears spilling down her cheeks now. "You're angry. You have every right to be. But we can get through this." "There is no we anymore, Camille," Jax said, his voice final. "Divorce papers will be filed tomorrow." Eleanor stepped between them again. "Don't be hasty. Take some time to consider the offer. The amount is negotiable. The amount is irrelevant." Jax moved toward the door. "We're done here." "You're making a mistake," Eleanor warned. "The Harding family has considerable influence in this city. This vendetta of yours won't end well for you." Jax turned back, his expression calm. Is that a threat, Eleanor? It's a reality check. Seattle is smaller than you think. Your business, your reputation, they depend on goodwill. Interesting perspective from the mother of a woman who destroyed her own reputation, Jax said, opening the office door. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual work to do. This isn't over, Eleanor promised as she guided a sobbing Camille toward the exit. You're right about that, Jax agreed. It's just beginning. After they left, Naomi appeared from the back room, where she had been listening. Well, that went exactly as expected. Were you recording audio and video? She held up her phone. Eleanor's thinly veiled threats will look great in court. Good, Jax said, sitting back at his desk. Time for phase 2. The Seattle courthouse gleamed in the rare winter sunshine as Jax climbed the steps, with Patricia Martin, his divorce attorney, beside him. News vans lined the street. The scandalous divorce of a prominent surgeon's mistress had attracted more attention than he had anticipated. Ready for this? Patricia asked, adjusting her grip on her briefcase. More than ready. Inside, the hearing proceeded with clinical efficiency. Jax had filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and adultery, with extensive evidence supporting his claims. Camille's attorney, an expensive specialist hired by Eleanor, argued for equal distribution of assets despite the infidelity. Judge Harriet Wilson, a no-nonsense veteran of the family court system, reviewed the evidence with pursed lips. Your Honor, Camille's attorney began, despite the unfortunate circumstances of this marriage's dissolution, Washington remains a community property state. Mr. Calloway's business flourished during the marriage, and Mrs. Calloway is entitled to her fair share. Patricia rose from her seat. Your Honor, while Washington is indeed a community property state, the evidence clearly shows Mrs. Calloway engaged in financial deception alongside her infidelity. Exhibit C demonstrates she diverted joint funds to finance her extramarital affairs, including hotel rooms and gifts for her lovers. The judge studied the financial records. I see multiple cash withdrawals and unexplained credit card charges. Furthermore, Patricia continued, Mr. Calloway's business was established prior to the marriage, and while it grew during their time together, Mrs. Calloway made no direct contribution to that growth. In fact, evidence suggests she actively misrepresented their finances to her paramours, claiming financial strain when Mr. Calloway was the sole breadwinner. Throughout the proceedings, Jax maintained a composed demeanor, answering questions directly and without emotion. Camille, by contrast, alternated between tearful pleas and icy glares, her performance shifting depending on who was watching. When the judge announced her ruling, the courtroom fell silent. Having reviewed all evidence and testimony, this court finds clear and convincing evidence of adultery and financial misconduct by the respondent, Camille Harding Calloway. While Washington law typically favors equal distribution, the circumstances here warrant deviation from that standard. Jax watched as Camille's face drained of color. The motorcycle business, including all assets and intellectual property, remains the sole property of Jasper Calloway. The marital home shall be sold, with 70% of proceeds to Mr. Calloway and 30% to Mrs. Calloway. Retirement accounts shall remain with their respective owners. Camille's attorney began to object, but Judge Wilson raised her hand. The court has considered all arguments. Given the extensive evidence of Mrs. Calloway's misconduct, this distribution is equitable. Divorce granted. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed around them. Jax declined to comment, walking steadily to his motorcycle while Camille was hustled into a waiting town car by her mother. Later that afternoon, Jax met Naomi at her apartment to execute the next phase of their plan. The divorce is final, he told her, accepting the glass of bourbon she offered. Judge ruled almost entirely in my favor. As expected, Naomi said, opening her laptop. But we're not done yet. What's the status on the social media release? Ready to go, she said, turning the screen to show him a carefully constructed release package, surveillance videos, text messages, and audio recordings, all edited to tell the complete story of Camille's betrayal. Once this goes live, it hits every medical professional group in Seattle simultaneously. Jax studied the material. And we're legally protected? Absolutely. It's all factual evidence, and the divorce ruling protects you from any claims of malicious intent. We're simply sharing information about professional misconduct in the medical community. Jax nodded. Do it. With a few keystrokes, Naomi sent the package to her network of contacts. Within minutes, the evidence began spreading through private professional forums, then to Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. The hashtag Seattle Hospital Scandal started trending locally. "There's something else you should see," Naomi said, pulling up a different screen. "Your friend Callum Merritt has been busy." The fitness trainer, humiliated by the discovery that he had been unknowingly involved with a married woman, had posted a lengthy statement on his professional social media accounts. In it, he detailed how Camille had pursued him under false pretenses, claimed to be single, and used him to betray her husband. "I feel used and violated," Callum wrote. "I would never knowingly participate in adultery or help someone cheat on their spouse. To Jax Calloway, I'm truly sorry for my unintentional role in this deception." "That's unexpected," Jax remarked, "but helpful." Naomi scrolled through the comments. His post is getting significant attention, especially since he has a large following in the fitness community. People are connecting it to the hospital scandal. By evening, Camille's professional reputation lay in ruins. The hospital administration, already dealing with the fallout from Dr. Langston's misconduct, placed her on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. Former patients questioned her ethics in online reviews. Colleagues distanced themselves publicly. Eleanor Harding's attempts to manage the crisis proved futile. Her contacts at local media outlets refused to bury the story. Her influence with hospital board members waned as the extent of Camille's deception became clear. Even her country club friends began declining lunch invitations, unwilling to associate with the growing scandal. 3 days later, Jax received a call from an unknown number. "Is this Jax Calloway?" a woman's voice asked. "Speaking." "This is Patricia Langston, Vincent's wife." She paused. "Ex-wife soon." "Mrs. Langston, what can I do for you?" "I wanted to thank you. The evidence you provided ensured my divorce settlement was fair." Her voice held no warmth, but there was respect. "Vincent lost his position at the hospital yesterday. The board reviewed his history and found a pattern of misconduct. I'm sorry you had to go through this. Don't. I suspected for years, but never had proof." She sighed. "Our children deserve better than a father who treats commitment like a suggestion." After hanging up, Jax checked the latest updates on his phone. Camille had been formally terminated from the hospital following their investigation. Her nursing license was under review by the state board. Every medical facility in the region had received documentation of her misconduct. That evening, as he worked late at the shop, a text arrived from Isa Navarro. "Sonardi, I heard what happened with Camille's job. You okay?" "Better than okay," he replied. "Free. Want to grab a drink sometime?" Isa wrote back, in A's friends or whatever. Jax considered the offer. Isa had been an unwitting catalyst in his discovery of Camille's betrayal. There was a certain symmetry to exploring that connection. "Tomorrow, 8 p.m., the usual place," he texted. 2 weeks later, Camille's complete downfall was evident. Without her nursing income and with limited proceeds from the house sale, she had been forced to move into her mother's guest house. Her attempts to secure another position at any hospital in Washington state had failed. The state board had suspended her license pending a full hearing. Eleanor's influence, once formidable in Seattle society, had diminished as the scandal refused to fade. Her friends whispered about her daughter's disgrace at charity events. Her political connections maintained polite distance. The Harding name, which she had protected so fiercely, now carried the taint of scandal. Jax, meanwhile, expanded his motorcycle business, securing a contract with a major collector that doubled his annual revenue. The publicity surrounding his divorce, far from damaging his reputation, had actually brought new clients interested in the work of a man who stood up for his principles. And through it all, he felt nothing for Camille. No anger, no pity, no regret. She had made her choices. Now she was living with the consequences. 6 months after the divorce, Jax stood in his newly expanded workshop, surveying the space with satisfaction. The additional 5,000 square feet accommodated 3 more custom-build stations, a dedicated paint booth, and an upscale client lounge. Business had never been better. "The Italian leather for the client area arrives tomorrow," Naomi said, checking items off her tablet. Since helping with his divorce, she had taken on a part-time role managing the expansion, and the coffee machine is being installed this afternoon. "Perfect," Jax said, examining the blueprint for his newest commission, a one-of-a-kind motorcycle for a tech billionaire with very specific requirements. "Any updates on the titanium parts?" "Shipped yesterday. Should be here by Friday." Naomi studied her brother. "You seem good. Better than good." "I am." And it was true. The weight of betrayal had lifted entirely, leaving him focused and purposeful. The business is thriving. The new hires are working out. And Isa is coming over for dinner tonight. "Getting serious there?" Naomi raised an eyebrow, taking it slow. "But she's..." Jax paused, considering. Real, honest. Two qualities worth appreciating. Naomi put down her tablet. Have you heard about Camille? Jax shook his head. He rarely thought about his ex-wife anymore. Her nursing license was officially revoked last week. Ethical violations. Not surprising. There's more. Eleanor's health took a turn. Some kind of cardiac event. She scaled back her social commitments. Also not my concern, Jax said, though not unkindly. Just thought you'd want to know. Naomi checked her watch. I've got a client meeting across town. Need anything else before I go? We're good here, Jax said, returning his attention to the blueprint. The conversation about Camille was already forgotten. Later that evening, as Jax prepared dinner at his new downtown loft, Issa leaned against the kitchen counter, wineglass in hand. The shop expansion looks amazing, she said. You've really built something special there. It's been a good year business-wise, Jax said, stirring the pasta sauce, comfortable in the domestic scene in a way he never had been with Camille. Their relationship had developed naturally over the past few months, starting with casual drinks and evolving into something more meaningful. I got an interesting offer today, Issa mentioned casually. Memorial Hospital wants me to lead their new trauma response team. That's fantastic, Jax said, knowing she had been hoping for the promotion. When do you start? Next month. Better hours, better pay. She sipped her wine, and guess who applied for a nursing position there last week? Jax looked up, immediately understanding. Camille? They rejected her application instantly. Word has spread through every hospital in the state. She made her choices, Jax said, returning to the sauce, unwilling to let thoughts of Camille intrude on their evening, Issa said, setting down her glass. But I'll admit, I feel a little sorry for her. A former colleague saw her working at some coffee place downtown, said she barely recognized her. Jax absorbed this information without reaction. The pasta is ready. The next day, curiosity got the better of him. After finishing up at the shop, Jax took a detour through downtown, passing by several coffee shops until he spotted one he hadn't noticed before, a small, independently owned cafe called Westlake Brew. Through the window, he saw her. Camille stood behind the counter wearing a green apron. Her once perfectly highlighted hair was now a natural brown, pulled back in a simple ponytail. Without the expensive clothes and carefully applied makeup, she looked entirely different, ordinary, forgettable. Jax parked his motorcycle and entered the cafe. A bell chimed as the door opened, and Camille looked up automatically with a practiced customer service smile that froze when she recognized him. Welcome to Westlake Brew, she said mechanically, her hands gripping the counter. What can I get for you? The cafe was nearly empty, just one elderly man reading a newspaper in the corner. Jax approached the counter unhurriedly, studying the woman who had once been the center of his life. 6 months had changed her dramatically. The confident, polished nurse was gone, replaced by someone who looked permanently tired, her eyes darting nervously as she waited for him to speak. Just a black coffee, Jax said, his voice neutral. Camille's hands shook slightly as she prepared the order. That'll be $3.75. Jax handed her a $5 bill, noting the cheap watch that had replaced her Cartier timepiece. Keep the change. Thanks, she said, pushing the coffee toward him, clearly hoping he would take it and leave. Instead, Jax leaned against the counter. How's your mother? Surprise flickered across Camille's face at the casual question. She's recovering. Doctor says she needs to reduce stress. Interesting advice for a woman who thrives on creating it for others. Camille's lips thinned. What do you want, Jax? Come to check on how far I've fallen. To gloat? Just stopped for coffee. Well, now you have it. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You've won, okay? I lost everything. My career, my reputation, my future. Are you satisfied now? Jax considered her question seriously. Yes. His simple answer seemed to deflate her remaining defiance. I never intended things to go this far, she said, her eyes downcast. The affairs, they just happened. And then I couldn't stop. It was exciting, different from our routine. Spare me the justifications, Jax said, his tone remaining conversational. They didn't just happen. You made deliberate choices every step of the way. Fine, you're right, she said, a hint of the old Camille surfacing in her flashing eyes. I made terrible choices. I hurt you. I deserve some consequences. But destroying my entire life, making sure I can never work as a nurse again, that's beyond punishment, Jax. That's vengeance. Call it what you want, Jax said, picking up his coffee. I call it justice. We were married for 7 years, Camille said, her voice breaking slightly. Doesn't that count for anything with you? Don't you have any forgiveness? Jax looked directly into her eyes. No, Camille, I don't. The finality in his voice seemed to reach her at last. She stepped back, resignation replacing anger. Then I feel sorry for you, she said quietly. Living with that much coldness, don't waste your pity. Save it for yourself. Jax turned to leave, then paused by the door. By the way, Issa got the promotion at Memorial, leading the trauma response team now. Pain flashed across Camille's face at the mention of her former workplace and colleague. Good for her. We're having dinner with the hospital administrator next week. I'll be sure to mention I ran into you. Get out, Camille whispered, tears threatening. You've made your point. Jax walked to the door, coffee in hand, then turned back one last time. Camille stood frozen behind the counter, a shadow of her former self, stripped of everything she had valued: status, career, wealth, respect. I told you, Camille, I don't forgive. The bell chimed again as he left, stepping into the bright Seattle afternoon. He mounted his motorcycle, the custom-built machine purring to life beneath him. As he pulled away from the curb, he didn't look back at the cafe or the woman inside. The past was settled. The future, with his expanding business and new relationship, stretched before him, unencumbered by betrayal or deception. Jax accelerated down the street, leaving the final remnants of Camille Harding behind him. Justice had been served, cold and complete.